This is my video on how to make deviled eggs in an Instant Pot. So the first thing that we're going to do is set up the Instant Pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add water into the inside of the Instant Pot. Just a disclaimer, before you put your pot inside of the sink, make sure that it's dry because you don't want the outside to be wet when it goes inside the Instant Pot, just to make sure that there's no electrical issues. I know it's a little hard to see, but it's filled up to about right here, just to make sure that the eggs are completely submerged in the water. We're going to put that back in the Instant Pot. Next, we're going to add some salt, and this helps so the eggs get a better peel afterwards. And you add about a teaspoon to a tablespoon depending on how many eggs you're going to do. I'm only going to do 5 eggs just because I don't need many at the moment. And I also like to eye a lot of this. I don't really have precise measurements. You just kind of know when to stop. Okay, now I'm going to gently place the eggs inside of the Instant Pot. Now we're going to put the lid on the Instant Pot. Okay, and then we're going to press egg. It's already at 5 minutes, so now we're going to wait for it to beep to tell us that it's going to start heating up. Alright, and now we're just going to wait here for it to heat up and then cook for 5 minutes. So around 2 to 1 minute, I like to prepare my ice water, and I'll use this for that. What I'm gonna do is I have some ice here, and I'm gonna start putting it in this bowl. And you want to make sure that it's really cold, just because it will help the eggs settle after they're heated up in there, and the yolks are gonna be warm in the middle, and it's better if they're cold. The Instant Pot is done. The Instant Pot is done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it off. And then here we're going to let out some steam. I'm going to pull it out a little bit. I'm just going to... Ooh, careful. It likes to splash. This will go on for about 5 minutes. So I'll just stand here. I'm going to finish getting my ice ready. I like to add salt into my ice water just because I think it helps make the water colder. So I'm going to sprinkle some salt in here. I'm going to fill this up. Just enough so the eggs will fit in there. And now we wait for this to be done. How you know this is done is you see that little red piece right there? That will eventually fall down. What I'm doing just helps release some of that extra steam in there, that pressure. Okay, and now we're going to remove the lid. And just a side note, never remove the lid when there's pressure in there. You have to wait for it to be completely done before you remove the lid. I'm going to go put them in the ice water. Alright, so it looks like we do have a broken one. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this one away just because it's not going to be entirely useful to us. Alright, and it looks like there's a couple other broken ones. They'll be okay. I'm worried about this one. There must have been too much pressure in there. So we'll see how that turns out at the end. So we're going to leave these eggs in here for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna go put them in the fridge because I like to make sure that the water's as cold as it can be. I mean, you can see the eggs, the heat has melted the ice here. So I'll be right back. So I just want to say that with the broken eggs, normally I make more at a time, typically about 8 to 10. I just shortened it today just because I don't need them. I normally use this for parties, for Thanksgiving. I don't have any of that to go to or to bring it to, so I tried to make it less. So a way that we can fix that is just by turning down the time and making sure that it's not in there with the pressure as long, because the pressure is what made it break. It's not going to be a big deal with those because the cracks are small, but as you saw with the other egg that I threw away, the whole bottom was broken. It's been about 5 minutes. I'm going to start peeling the eggs. I'm going to start with the broken one. I just peel this in the sink. Even if they are broken, we can still use the yolks inside because the yolks weren't damaged. And I think that we'll be able to salvage this one. It doesn't seem like it's too wet or anything. I'll dip that back in the water. Make sure all the eggshells are off. And go ahead and put it in your separate bowl. All right. Then next I'm going to take another cracked one. See, this one isn't cracked too bad. It just kind of started the peeling process already. That's how I see it. What I like to do is once I get an initial start, you see how I like to take a spoon. I stick it just underneath the shell. Move around the egg. Rinse it off. Put it inside. It's easier to use the spoon because you can get underneath that shell without damaging the egg and crushing it with too much pressure or your strength, not knowing your strength. Like, look, this one came out perfect. And this one's okay, like it was cracked. It was cracked from the Instant Pot, but it came out perfect. The egg is not saturated like the other one would have been. And it didn't have any damage to it, like it's a perfectly peeled egg. All right, this is the last one, the only one that was not cracked, it seems. So what I normally do is when they're not cracked, the bottom here has a little like pocket of air or water because the water seeps into the shell. And I'll go ahead and I'll hit the bottom on the side of the sink. Like that. And I'll squeeze it. You can see how it... The salt definitely helps. I've had a time where I did not use salt, and they were probably the worst peeled eggs I've ever had. They were very difficult, and which makes it more frustrating than it already is to peel an egg. And I also did not use the spoon method at that time. And the spoon method I find incredibly helpful because it just fits around the egg like so. Next we're going to cut the eggs. I'm going to lower my camera so you can see me do it. So I like to use a wooden cutting board because the eggs are still wet. They have water on them. I mean, you can see they're a little shiny. And then the wooden cutting board helps absorb all the moisture. And then I like to use this. I don't know if it's a knife. I'm not sure what it's called, but it makes the eggs look pretty after you cut them. So I'm going to place the egg here, and I'm going to cut it long ways. All right, we have the yolk. Let's plop it in there. These yolks turned out perfect. This is the broken one. I'm going to cut it looks like there's like a line already, so I'm gonna try to cut it on that line. All right, and next we're just going to break these up a little bit. And they should look like this. We're not gonna make them too broken, just enough so there aren't many big pieces. Okay, next we're going to add some mayo. We don't need too much just because there's not a lot in there, and I don't like to start with a lot because you can always add, you can't take away. Add some mustard. I also like my deviled eggs tangy, but add whatever you like. Okay. So you can use a hand mixer. I just don't have one. It would break up like some more of this yolk in here, the chunks. I personally like them. I don't mind a little bit of the egg yolk being in there just because it helps break up that flavor. But I think this is pretty good, and I will show the final product of the mixture. So this is what it looks like. You can see there's still a little bit of the egg yolk in there, but it's not too bad. Let's see if I can get some better lighting. So there's that. Next, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and put the yolk in the bag. All right, so here's what that bag looks like, and you see how there's a little corner here. We're gonna cut that off. I like to start smaller, and then if that's too small, I'll go bigger, but I think that might be okay. And then we're just gonna pour it in the eggs. All right, well, here are the eggs. I know they aren't the prettiest, especially that one, but they're not meant to look pretty. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle on some paprika. And this is for color, but I think it helps add to the taste. It brings out the yolk more. It doesn't make it as overwhelming. All right, and this is their final look.